Hello and welcome back to What I Think I Know with your host, Dan Brigantino. What I think I know this week is that I have a theory. This week's theory is that the big one will never come. We were all taught, of course, Yellowstone is very dangerous. It'll erupt and destroy everything on the west of the country. We know that the San Andreas Fault could go off at any moment and half of California will drop into the sea. We've been told all these things, but are they ever going to happen? Now, if you look at places like California, we know kind of the whole eastern half of it is all volcanic stuff out in the desert. Everywhere you go, you see volcanic rock and whatnot. But that's old volcano stuff. Very old volcano stuff. The last time we had any activity was Mount St. Helens. But one thing we still do have in California is some activity regarding geysers, the little bubbling puddles of mud, things like that. They are still very much prevalent in California. So my theory is that all of our volcanic activity is slowly dying off in our part of the country because, the plates coming together, the Pacific and the North American. We can look at Hawaii and see that those islands are dotted in a line because the mantle keeps moving underneath the crust and poking up new little springs of lava, creating the new volcanoes. Now, under the Pacific plate, something different is going on. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but we have tons and tons of dormant volcanoes out here. So many of them in California, it's ridiculous. There's got to be hundreds of them. All dormant, nothing going on, no excitement. But Yellowstone, they say, can still erupt. Now, my theory is very simple. Yellowstone is the example of volcanic activity leaving the area, kind of like New Zealand. The whole country of New Zealand, they've got little mini Yellowstones all over the place. Just like California, we've got some little mini Yellowstones as well. I just mentioned that a minute ago. So we know we've had a very violent volcanic history, and we know now that everything's gone dormant, we still have the geysers and mud puddles remaining. Well, that's what Yellowstone isn't it? Very interesting. So, my theory is the big one will never happen because it's just dwindling. Old Faithful's eruptions have been getting farther apart the longer time goes. We've been recording Old Faithful since about 1940, 1939, something like that. And the eruptions are getting further and further apart the more time passes. Would that not indicate that the eruption potential is shrinking rather than growing? If there was more activity happening underground, would it not be getting more active? Theory of the day, the big one, never gonna happen. Moving on, we have a little firearms chat to have. Now, we talked a little bit about the Glock ban in California. California's banning the Glock handgun from sale. Of course, you can keep what you have for now, but you're not allowed to buy or sell any new ones in California. Now, this technically has been going on for a long time. California, we're only allowed to have the Gen 3 as the newest version because of our roster disallowing us to own any new firearms after 2016, which is a little interesting because the whole focus is on safety, and since 2016, guns have only gotten safer. So that's very interesting. I figure we should keep the newer ones, right? As time goes, ingenuity strikes and things get better. Correct? Maybe not here in California. We get stuck into one part of life. We're frozen in about 2016. Now, we banned Glocks, but Glock is the world's foremost producer of handguns, most popular guns in the country. In fact, our attorney general, someone who ran for president, said that she owns a Glock. And I think that's great. I think she should own a Glock. I think everybody should own a Glock. It's a great starter handgun. It's definitely not the best handgun around, but it is, for the money, the most reliable and simplest to use. Everybody understands how to use a Glock. It's very easy. So when California banned the Glock, Glock themselves went, okay, well, we'll make a model basically special for California. Now, I don't know what they were perhaps incentivized by. I don't know exactly what happened, but they ended up discontinuing, Glock that is, ended up discontinuing every firearm they make. And threw out all their old technology, or not old, but all the stuff they use to make the, currently we're on generation 5. But they're all virtually the same parts. There's little differences here and there, like serrations on the slide in certain places, so you could rack the slide easier or whatever. But anyway, so they've discontinued all their old models, and they're moving into the V series, which is pretty funny because as we were on the 5th generation, now they've called their whole new series Series 5 or Series V in Roman numerals. I don't know what that I don't know. That's interesting. It might be them going like, we didn't change a thing. Or it's just, they're dumb, which I wouldn't be surprised, because caving to California like they did is clearly a stupid move. But anyway, they're making Glock Vs. The whole reason this happened is because the Glock 1st generation through 3rd generation, you can make fully automatic very easily. They call it a switch. There's a little thing that can be 3D printed. You install on the backside of the slide, and full auto. There you go. Interestingly enough, though, I think this V series, I don't even think it's like out for sale. I don't know how it happened, but somebody already made a switch for it. It's already full auto. So we now have a law banning certain kinds of full auto or potentially full auto weapons because there is one piece in particular in it. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but one piece in particular in it that actuates with the switch and makes a full auto. Well, they've gotten rid of that piece in the new generation, and somehow people made it full auto anyway. So, like I said, now we've banned a gun because it could become full auto, just to introduce a gun that could still be made full auto. Interesting. I've said this before. We've got a segment for this. I've said it 1,000 times. I believe that was a segment name. Anyway, somebody help me out with segment names. I'm terrible at it. But I've said this 1,000 times. Or I've been saying this for years. Maybe that was it. Anyway, you can make any semi-automatic firearm fully automatic with a simple file. This has been known for generations. First time I learned about it, I was, 12 years old or something, and I was chatting with my neighbor, and he said when he was a kid, he was a Vietnam War vet. He's a lot older than me, but he said when he was a kid, he and his buddies, did the same sort of thing anybody else would do, filed down the I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but filed down the correct piece and made their little 22 full auto. It's a great fun thing. I mean, it's not, full auto is not the most useful thing. We know that from the military. The military predominantly uses semi-automatic or semi-auto only. Now they do have full auto capabilities, of course, because hey, you never know. You burst down a door, run into a room, and all of a sudden hell breaks loose and you need to just drop your whole magazine into the room. That happens. And then, of course, there's light machine guns and all sorts of different things that, semi-automatic. is pointless. You built a big, strong, hefty gun that can handle the heat and pressure of full auto, so that you can lay down cover fire and things like that. Now, I suppose you may disagree with me, perhaps. Maybe not all firearms could be made fully automatic. Well, you'd be wrong. In fact, I would argue that it's easier to make a fully automatic firearm than it is a semi-automatic firearm. Let me explain. I will explain this using this. Airsoft gun, fake gun, not a real gun. It's a terrific gun, by the way, Elite Force. If you're into airsoft, it's CO2. It kicks like a mule. It's a lot of fun to plink around in the backyard with, and it's also super accurate. I've had this one for years. It's never failed me, and it doesn't lose accuracy as the hop up degrades kind of thing. It's been very solid, and I have not taken very good care of it. You got to use heavy BBs. I think 0.3 gram BBs. I can't remember what I use in this. But the heavier your BB, the more accurate your gun's going to be, no matter how high the FPS is. It might shoot really slowly, but with a heavy BB, it'll be accurate at least. Anyway, so not the point. The point is, we're talking about how to make a fully automatic weapon. That's not what we're talking about. Sorry, YouTube. We're talking about why it's easier to make a weapon fully automatic than it is to make it semi-automatic. From the ground up, you have your firearm, right? When you, just drop the hammer there, when you pull the trigger, the hammer drops forward, the slide comes back, an empty casing shoots out of there, and as the slide moves forward, it loads a new casing or a new round into the chamber. And let me do that again, and I'm going to hold the trigger down the whole time. You watch the hammer here. Hammer drops, slide actuates, hammer is locked back. Now, I have to release the trigger and pull it again. What's so crazy about that? What's crazy is that we have to add a mechanism for that slide to lock. If we were to simply allow that slide the hammer, if we were to allow the hammer to simply fall forward after each round was fired, we would have a much simpler firearm, less moving parts, and a fully automatic firearm. Now you say, oh, firearms, they're dangerous. We need to ban weapons of war. We can have maybe shotguns and rifles and stuff, but no weapons of war, right? Weapons of war. A cannon? A bazooka? A tank? Well, I'm not understanding fully, because what I have here is a weapon of war. This is one of the heaviest used weapons of war that the world has ever seen. It's a Mauser. It's a Kar 98, as some people know it from Call of Duty and whatnot. This is a bolt-action rifle. In fact, this bolt-action mechanism here has been used on virtually every single bolt-action rifle that has come into existence since this one. Now, was this not the most popular firearm of both world wars? The bolt-action rifle? I think it was. Now, if we were to ban weapons of war, we'd have to start here. Dan from another day. I forgot to mention that the Springfield, 1903 Springfield, which was based on the Mauser design, different setup, stock, and whatnot. But anyway, they made that semi-automatic, actually. Fantastic, beautiful rifle. I highly suggest you looking it up. I believe it was from 1908. And it cycled the bolt automatically, which is super cool. And then there was another version that came out a lot later during World War II, I believe. And it fired a pistol-sized cartridge, which is just basically a shorter cartridge, same caliber, used the same barrel, but a smaller cartridge, and they could fit the whole thing into the bolt assembly. So you'd remove your bolt, slide this other piece in, and it would take a magazine from the top. The semi-automatic, the full bolt version, also ran on a magazine coming out below, and both could be made fully automatic. And we have another weapon of war that we would never be able to actually ban in this country. Not because it's a weapon of war, but because it's a very common rifle, and it's extremely useful in all respects, and everybody loves it. It's iconic. The M1 Garand. Now this here, as keen-eyed viewers would notice, it's not an M1 Garand. It's also, again, not a real rifle. This is a M14 airsoft gun. Very simple, but very close to the M1 Garand. Now, the M1 Garand, we all know, even if you don't recognize the name, we all know it. It's the gun that uses a clip, not a magazine, but a clip. Push it in through the top, rack it forward, fire your 8 shots, and on the last round, the clip flies out and goes ping! Great weapon, weapon of war, and a great example of a semi-automatic firearm that you can make fully automatic. Now, I got a clip for you here, which is freaking awesome. Thank this guy for his service. I didn't know anybody was actually doing this during the war. I've never heard any stories, I guess I've never heard any stories against this either. But I was unaware. Apparently this man is. I pointed over here because that's where my phone is, and that's what the video's on before I put it on the computer. Anyway, check out this video.
Was this a good weapon?
Boy, it was. It shoots 8 shots per clip. As fast as you. But there's one way to make it automatic. That you file your sear pin. File the sear pin inside the mechanism, and you can pull the trigger one time, and it just goes 8 shots.
So, with a simple file, full auto. Badass. I gotta say, that's freaking awesome. The M1 Garand fires a 30-06. Now, I wish I had some ammo laying around. I don't have any 30-06 rifles, so I can't really show you. But the difference is the AR-15, the one that we want to ban, was initially designed for varmints, for squirrels and things like that. Even deer are a little too big for that round. The 223 is like this big. The 30-06 is like this big. It might as well be a 50 caliber in comparison. It's enormous. And yeah, it'll take down a freaking elk very quickly. Now, elk are insanely strong and robust animals. It still might take a couple shots with a 30-06 unless it's very well placed. But the point is, your weapons of war label is baloney. It's malarkey. It's laughable. Weapons of war look like this. This is a weapon of war. And this is for shooting squirrels. Simple as that. Not a weapon of war. Just because you can pull the trigger faster. I don't get it. Now, if our M1 Garand is okay to own in the States, then the M14 is okay to own in the States. It's actually generally a smaller round. The M14 typically is firing a 308 versus a 30-06. Larger caliber, only by .002. Ever so slightly wider the bullet is, but the casing is a lot smaller. It holds a lot less powder and therefore is a lot less powerful. And now it holds a 20-round magazine typically, but the M1 Garand was actually designed toward the later end of the war. They actually made some models that used a magazine. It used the magazine from the BAR. So if the M1 Garand and the M14 can't be banned, then what the heck's wrong with the AR-15? Really doesn't make much sense. Fortunately, we do have some cases going to the Supreme Court. At the end of their last session, they said, in the next session or the one after that, we're going to be taking some AR-15 cases. So, and there's three. I can't remember if they were. I don't think they were strictly like AR-15 bans. I think they're all a little bit more focused on magazine capacity and things like that. But essentially, once you get magazine capacity dealt with, then they can't really say anything about anything because your uncle's M14 runs on a 20-round magazine. What's another great example? Oh, my dad, the rifle. I don't think I did. I can't remember what rifle I shot my first deer with. Doesn't really matter. But a hunting rifle I used to use with like pigs and things a lot was a 270. Little bigger than a 223. Now with calibers, we're just going point ... for the most part. It's an inch calculation using fractions. So a 50 caliber is half an inch wide. The bullet is half an inch wide, not length or anything like that. We're not worried about that. That's the amount of powder we can hold in that casing. But the 270 is a very common deer hunting rifle. I would, maybe not anymore, but I would say at least when I was growing up, it was probably the most popular caliber for hunting. My dad's got a semi-automatic 270 that runs on a magazine, a detachable magazine, which, if you know anything about what a magazine actually is, virtually every magazine runs on the same concept, including an airsoft gun. There's a spring. Let's see if you can see that. There's a spring that holds tension, pushing the cartridges upward, and then the action strips the bullet off the top, or the cartridge off the top and into the chamber. With the right combination of spring and little follower, which is this little like plastic piece that kind of feeds the rounds upward. With the right combination of spring and follower, you can make a magazine just about infinitely long. So with the onset or riddance of the magazine limit, now my dad's deer hunting rifle could very well be outclassing the AR-15 when it comes to warlike activities. Longer range, more hitting power, more accuracy. 270's better, and all it needs is 25 more rounds in the magazine, because the magazine I have for it only holds 5. Anywho, that's about all I got for guns today. Please comment down below what you think, and if I left anything out, let me know. I'll just keep making more videos. A very disturbing case out of Maine. If you haven't heard about it yet, oh boy, it is not a fun one for really anybody. A couple is in the midst of separating, and or has already separated. I'm not exactly sure on that. But anyway, there's a divorcing couple, and the mother has primary custody of the daughter. The father says that he doesn't like churches or whatever. In this story, it says they're going to Calvary Chapel. I'm not sure exactly what religion that is or what sect of what religion it is. But the dad thinks it's a cult. Sure, that's fair, I guess, if you want to see it that way. I kind of think like the atheists are more of a cult than the religious people are. They're just as religious as we are. They just believe in the opposite, essentially. But anyway, this father got upset that the mother was bringing the daughter to church, and it ended up in court, and the court has actually ordered the mother not to bring her daughter to Calvary Chapel anymore. She is not allowed to share the scripture with her daughter, and she is not allowed to expose her daughter to biblical teaching. The court says the church is psychologically unsafe. Wow. Separation of church and state is not to keep the religious orders from controlling the government. It's actually to keep the government from controlling the religious orders. Now, if you were telling somebody you are not allowed to believe in a certain religion, that is the church, or that is the legal system diving into church and state being connected. So if the state is able to dictate where you go to church, that is churches and state commingling. Now, the church isn't commingling with the state, but the state is commingling with your religious abilities. Freedom of religion, gone out the window right there. That's it. It's done. That will quickly spread across the country unless we stop it. And, well, what's the other form of religion that, of course, will be protected throughout all this? Muslims, Islam. They will be protected from the separation of church and state in this manner. They will be allowed to do whatever the hell they want, and it will be blamed on Christians. Just like all this Republican crime being labeled as political crime instead of just regular old crime, and things like murdering a prominent Republican speaker that's just passionate crime. That's not political crime. Yeah, that's the numbers are lying segment of the day. Anyway, pray for this Emily Brickford and her daughter. I pray that they continue to go to church. They disregard the court's order. They continue to go to church, and the state of Maine gets what's coming to it. It's terrifying. It's insanity. And it needs to stop, and it needs to stop right now. I did look into kind of what Christians feel mentally, like how's our mental health doing compared to the rest of the world. Every study I could find was swayed to one side. Not one side or the other, but no, swayed to one side specifically. Essentially saying that religion is dangerous, that religion has no sort of therapy in it, and that the common atheist is much more content and happy with life and whatnot, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever. That's denial for you. You become an atheist. You deny, and you don't go any further than that. That's atheism. It's like what are the 5 stages of grief? Denial, anger, depression, something else maybe, and then acceptance. I can't remember what they all are, but it starts with denial. Right? You're denying, there's no God. Otherwise, my life wouldn't be like this. There can't be a God because people are still experiencing injustice and pain and all that sort of stuff. You forget that humans need pain to learn. Without pain, we'd all still just be hanging out at the monkey bars and just enjoy. Well, not the monkey bars, because the monkey bars hurt. You could fall and break your leg. You'll end up with blisters on your hands, and so you can't play at the monkey bars. You got to wrap yourself in bubble wrap and sit still. But anyway, you need pain, you need suffering, you need all these things in order to move forward as a human. Atheists don't understand this. They get to the first, my life didn't go how I wanted it to. There must be no God. So you're at denial. And then you just live your entire life in denial. You don't do any extra studying. That's coincidentally how I became religious. I denied. I said, no, there can't be a God because everything's bullshit. And then I went further. and studied. I studied all kinds of different religions. I looked at who thinks what about what, and I compared them all and contrasted them all, and well, realized that Christianity is the only clear option. Everybody else is corrupted. Not corrupted, that's a terrible term to use in this sense, because everybody says the Bible is corrupted. So I like to steer clear of commonly used terms and whatnot. But the corruption is rampant. Islam, I'm always bashing Islam because they started out as a warrior cult. They conquered all of the Middle East and North Africa. They tried conquering England, and then we fought them back, and now everybody thinks we're the bad guys. I thought colonialism was bad. Muslims have done more colonialism than anybody else has in the history of the world. They were started 1,500 years ago, and now they own most of that populated land that is not Europe and America. Anyway, yeah, it's all ridiculous. So I researched to try to find like basically what group is the best mentally kind of thing. Who has the least mental issues. I can't remember the term. Mental health. Who's got the worst mental health, or who's got the best mental health? If you're a Christian, you know it's Christians. You see it everywhere you go. But if you're not a Christian, you've got, that weird cynical denial going on. So you're going to say it's atheists who live the best lives and the happiest lives. But unfortunately, that's super not true. Because the stats rely on the fact that Christians don't go to therapy. The studies think that Christians not going to like licensed therapists means that they're just stuffing their depression and anxiety down and ignoring it. But that's not what happens in the church. Now, for some of the, I go to church on Easter Sunday and that's it kind of group, yeah, sure, that's absolutely, that's how it works. You just stuff down your emotions because you don't know how to correctly get around them, or through them, rather. But the correct way to go about it is you give it to God. You go, God, I'm trusting you. Take this pain, take this anxiety, take this depression, take it off my shoulders. The Lord tells us his yoke is light and his burden is easy. If we are just to go to him and follow him. That's all it takes right there. And now for the kind of more imminent, disastrous things, like, oh, my life is crumbling around me. I'm in panic and I just need to talk to somebody. Sometimes you pray to God and God doesn't speak back to you instantly. And, a lot of people would take that moment to go to a therapist. We have therapists in the church. A lot of people don't realize this, but our priests, our elders, they are the therapists. When you go to confession, that is the therapy. You're admitting to the horrible things you've done, or maybe not even horrible, but just bad things. I mean, we say every sin is equal. So if I lie about taking the trash out to my fiance, if I say, oh, I took it out, and I haven't taken it out, that's a sin that is just as bad as murdering somebody. It's murder of the self, essentially. Lying is me murdering myself and kind of her in the process. Now, the therapy is telling on yourself, being honest with yourself. Most days, or most therapy sessions these days are, well, how did that make you feel? Okay, well, no, that's a good reaction. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Where it should be, you fucking idiot. Are you dumb or just stupid? That's what it should be. But nobody gets that anymore. No, everybody's just comforted and told that everything's okay. But in the church, you're telling on yourself. You're going, I did this and I know it was wrong. Nobody has to see that I know it was wrong. Nobody has to know what I did. But because you know what I did, the Lord knows what I did, I'm regretful. And I need to fix what I've done wrong. Now, you're not accepted into heaven by works, but instead by faith alone. And to essentially kind of prove your faith, you are to proclaim the Lord's name with your mouth and believe it in your heart. And you really can't do that without confessing to the Lord also your sins. So all that's to say that not going to church, I would argue, is psychologically unsafe. And that Christians are the most mentally stable people out there because we keep ourselves in track. And that is kind of the point of church, to keep yourself in track. It's not about what everybody else can do for me. It's about what I can do for me. Simple as that. I do find that to be kind of lacking, when all these people are, they say crashing out. I kind of like that term, honestly. I just said a minute ago that I don't like using popular terms, but I do kind of like that one because it allows me to define what somebody's doing without them bringing or receiving like offense from it. Now, I'm not trying to say I'm protecting everybody from feeling offended, because fuck your feelings. They don't matter at all. Not even a little bit in reality. They don't matter at all. The instinctual feeling, of I better do this now, that can matter sometimes. But emotions, happy, sad, no, most of the time you're just either hungry or thirsty or something. But anyway, yeah, there's too many people crashing out in public, yelling and all that stuff, and we all forget, like, first off, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And also, if you don't like what's going on, you can leave. That's your ability. If you don't like what's happening here, you can walk away and go somewhere else. You don't own the place you're standing, unless, of course, this is your private property, in which case you have all the power to do and say whatever you want there. Excluding the extremes, murder and stuff like that. You don't just have carte blanche to go murder whoever steps into your house. To a point. I mean, once you say, get out of my house, and if they don't go, there you go. That's trespassing. Anywho, back to the point. We got to police ourselves. And the best, easiest way to do that is to rely on the Lord, who will certainly show you where you're going wrong. One of my favorite religious things is actually from the movie Evan Almighty with Steve, what's his name? Michael from The Office. Steve Carell, there we go. There's a moment where Steve Carell he's basically Noah, and his wife thinks he's gone crazy, and she goes to a restaurant, and she's like kind of crying about it at the table, and the waiter walks up and he goes, hey, is everything all right? And she goes, yeah, it's fine, but can I get a refill? And they start chit-chatting kind of thing, and he goes, oh, your husband's the Noah guy, huh? New York Noah. I kind of like that guy, actually. And she's like, what? You're crazy. And he goes, let me ask you something. If someone asked for patience, would God just give them patience? Or would he give them something to learn patience from? If he asked the family to be given more time to spend together, would God just postpone everything he has on his schedule? Or would he give them something to do on their schedule together? Now, I'm not doing it nearly as well as Morgan Freeman does in that role, but and I've also kind of forgotten most of the lines there. But I encourage you all to go watch Evan Almighty. It's a fantastic movie. That is probably my favorite part of the whole movie. And it's a really cool bit to the end where he starts walking away and she goes, oh, wait, what about my refill? No. He starts walking away and she goes, well, thank you, and he starts walking away and he goes, now enjoy. And she's got a full plate of food there, and obviously nobody else walked up to the table. It was a big turning point in the movie. It's a really beautiful scene. I really suggest you go watch it. But anyway, yeah, the Lord gives us opportunities to be patient, to learn. He gives us opportunities to learn. He doesn't just give us the knowledge offhand. And that's about all I've got to say about that. Courts, you are so in the wrong for that. Absolutely disgusting. Yeah, it's even kind of sad that the father would want to keep his daughter from Christ. Obviously, he is in the denial stage. I think I've talked about this before, but I've met several people who say, like, I know enough about the Bible to know that it's not for me. Yeah, I read the back of a book one time and decided the book wasn't for me. I then read the book later and decided that that's my favorite book I've ever read. So, don't judge a book by its cover, maybe, huh? Interesting. Our last segment of the day, finally I'm going to start shutting up. Our hero of the week. An interesting character. He started out as an actor. He was on, I think they consider it a soap opera. I don't know if they were selling soap, which was the point of soap operas, but they call it a soap opera anyway. It was EastEnders. It's an English, BBC TV show. I've never heard it. I just know that he got his start in acting, and, well, that's what he was acting in. But shortly after, he turned reporter. He would do things like going into Afghanistan and all different sorts of dangerous places and interviewing the locals and whatnot. And he's done a lot of great things. He's brought a lot of atrocities to the viewer. He has let us see direct from the minds of the people engaged in these horrible things what they think. And just seeing what they think is kind of half the battle to learning what's going on. But anyway, he's a great guy. He's been doing a lot of awesome stuff. And here is a little clip I think is one of the more important clips for people to see on the internet.
Some of them, they're not screaming. It's like they wanted to be raped, you see. She also grabs you see, no more
like
crying.
She's enjoying it, even though she isn't, but it's like she's enjoying it.
Do you think it's right? Do you think it's right to rape?
Yeah, it's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong.
What about the consequences of what you're doing in terms of how that affects the person that's raped?
Yeah, the consequences, we look at that all the time, because it happens, she might scream, people might wake up. A lot of people, especially.
I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about the emotional effect, the physical effect it has on the girl.
Yeah. Sometimes we know that we might rape her and wake up tomorrow with viruses ourselves, like HIV,
What about regretting what you've done to the girl?
I also do regret about it, because if she fell pregnant, what will be that baby's father? Who will be that baby's father?
But what about her personal feelings?
That's right. Unless you've been living under a brick, or, perhaps you're blind or only listening to this audio, you'll know that was Ross Kemp, a great British man, and this week's Hero of the Week. So, Ross, here's your Coors Banquet. Please come on down and accept it. We all know you won't, because I'm the only one who's actually going to end up watching this video. But anyway, you're my hero this week. I hope you're any of the other viewers' heroes. I know this video I showed was a long time ago, but I still think it's a heroic move, and I just wanted to celebrate him for that, and for all the other things he's done very similar to that. I encourage anybody wondering to look it up and go do a deep dive on Ross Kemp. He's super cool. That's about all I have for this week. Thank you for everything, Ross Kemp. We'll be praying for Emily Bickford, or Bickford, I think it is, without the R, Bickford. Don't go making your semi-automatic firearms fully automatic just yet. That day may come, but don't do it yet. And yeah, thank you, that one person who watches. If many people end up watching this at some point, thank you all for watching. God bless you all. God bless America. God bless this beautiful big planet we live on, and every single human being alive. I do want to make that clear. God bless everybody, no matter what side of what you're on. Anywho, thank you all for watching. God bless. See you next week.